Chris Doman was will be sorely missed, man. He was a huge part to the success of what FIU is today. He was one of the first guys. Him and Julian Alvarez were the first, FIU guys that kind of welcomed me in. Not including the guys that I had previously coached with Miami Youth that were at FIU, but he was a big part in the merging of the environment and the culture that they had, and the environment and the culture that I was going to be building with FIU. I do recall one time early, and it was usually him and Julie and Abe, who, Abraham, who was another big piece of that kind of would come to me and ask me questions around the legality of things that they could do as forwards. So, Chris was always willing to learn and kind of, develop his game. And I was always willing to kind of teach him how to take things, further. And he was always a unit and a threat on the field. So he will be missed, man. And I could never say enough about him. So here's to you, bud.
Well, welcome to episode 19 of Talking Florida Rugby Occasionally. My name is Ross Davenport. Sorry to start the episode off on such a sad note, but we wanted to pay some respects to Chris Doman, former FIU and Miami player who passed away right at the new year of 2021. As you heard from Ronnie there, he's going to be missed greatly by all the FIU community as well as the Florida rugby community. I remember reffing him a couple of times. You couldn't miss him on the field. Big lad with a big heart, and he will sorely be missed. Also want to recognize the passing away of Sean Riley this week, after complications following heart surgery. He played in the 2017 South Championships for Southern Pines, which were up in Ormond Beach, Florida. I actually reffed him in that semifinal that year. He went on to play for the USA South. He was on the roster of NOLA Gold until recently, obviously, and also played in the Bermuda Tens in the fall. Big loss there. Sean Riley, only 30 years of age. So again, I hate to start this episode on a down note, but we wanted to get those in memoriams in before we moved on to other things. Speaking of other things, you'll notice that Charlie Velasquez is not here. I don't even see him in the waiting room. Charlie decided, we do have a section in our podcast called We F'd Up, which we're going to start this week, because every episode we're likely to F something up. So we do like to apologize for things. Even when I referee, I F up. So Charlie decided it was a good idea to try and upgrade his internet 15 minutes before we started this, and he's still not back. So hopefully we see Charlie at some point in this podcast. But I'm going to try. Listen, this is definitely a two-man job. Charlie does a great job of the producing, which he puts these things like these banners and the graphics and the videos and the photos up. So I'm going to try and do two things at once here until Charlie decides to get back in the game. Hopefully at some point before 8:30. So bear with me here as we try and get through this. Obviously, we started some U23 rugby in Florida this weekend. We'll get to that in a little bit. Before we get to all that, I want to recognize some people that have helped out this show over the last week or so. Obviously, this show doesn't happen for free. There's hosting costs and equipment costs, etc. We try to make this podcast as professional as it can be, even though it's obviously a very amateur thing, as today is proving to be. But we want to recognize Boca Raton Rugby Club, who donated a nice sum of money to Charlie and the podcast to help things keep going. As well as Ale Hakim and Phoenix Sevens, Ryan Fresh Moran, Karen Liu from Fort Miami, and some bloke named John Davenport, who I've never heard of, but thanks for his support. Actually, I think he's my dad, if I remember correctly. But we finally got him going via, I think we tried GoFundMe, then we tried Zelle, he doesn't have Venmo or PayPal. He's a cash man, but unfortunately I live 10 minutes from him, and I didn't feel like driving to go get it and somehow get it to Charlie. But we eventually got John with the GoFundMe. But if you'd like to help out the podcast, again, I think this is a great promotion vehicle for Florida rugby. I think our viewerships have gone up every week. Charlie and I have great fun doing it. And that link there on the screen, rugbyfl.com/GoFundMe. You can also Venmo at rugbyfl.com. If you'd like to sponsor an episode, you can contact Charlie via an email at charlie@rugbyfl.com. Boca will have an episode sponsored at some time in the future. We did a nice, fun Miami Tridents episode in the off season for those of you that have tuned in since the beginning. So we'll definitely do a Boca episode as well come the off season. Obviously had some serious success in the 90s as well as the 2000s, and always up there on the D2 side of things, one of the perennially stronger teams in the state of Florida. So yeah, rugbyfl.com/GoFundMe. You can Venmo at rugbyfl. You can go to paypal.me/rugbyfl. I see Carrie O'Malley also waiting in the waiting room. We'll get to her perhaps in a little bit. Always good to hear from her, just like she did last week. We did last week. So let's get to my We Effed Up section. Last week, I think I mentioned that Okapi U23 was an Okapi side. Well, it's really not. Obviously, with the U23 side of things, colleges have teamed up with men's clubs to be able to SIP. I know they played yesterday. We'll get to that. That's our game of the week in a minute. The team formerly known as FIU against the team formerly known as FAU. One of the best rivalries in Florida. They're now known as Okapi U23 and Palm Beach U23, just for purpose, for COVID purposes, because a lot of these colleges don't want teams playing under the college banner at the moment for liability reasons. So I do apologize for that error last week. I know we had some information about COVID, etc., and teams may or may not have had COVID games canceled, may or may not because of COVID. So listen, we're always willing to put out your press releases, even if it's just an email to me saying this is what we'd like to say about why this game didn't take place. So please reach out to us. Misinformation in this day and age is obviously a big issue. Communication is the best way to make sure we get the correct news out there. So please feel free to email me at rossdavenport@gmail.com or text me or message me on Facebook or on Twitter, however you need to do to get the correct information out. I still don't see Charlie back. So let me pull this graphic off before we get to our next thing. 3 quick things. For the first thing we're going to talk about, Fort Lauderdale, they actually played a friendly yesterday, which I refereed against Palm Beach. They bravely, I think they brought perhaps 15 to 17. They managed to start the game with just their own players and hung in there for about 10 or 15 minutes against Palm Beach. One of the strongest teams in the state that I've seen this year so far. But the day before it was announced that they will not be competing in matrix play this year. So we won't see Fort Lauderdale in league matches this season. They hopefully will get to see them in some friendlies at some point. I'm trying to see if Charlie jumped in. Not yet. Hopefully we'll see Fort Lauderdale play some friendlies. We hate to see teams on hard times, especially numbers-wise, like Fort Lauderdale is at the moment. Obviously former powerhouse and produced some great teams over the years. So hopefully we see them back in league play next season. They had some brave souls that took to that field yesterday and tried to tackle some big Palm Beach boys. And we don't have highlights of that game because Charlie decided not to stick around for that second game, even though he was there for the first game. He decided to leave and not videotape the second game. You would have seen some fun tries and some great flowing rugby from Palm Beach, who will take on Boca in a couple of weeks, which will probably be the game of the week that week. My second 3 quick thing is an MLR-related thing. San Diego Legion are moving to play in Las Vegas. The reason we mentioned that is because Peter Malcolm, former Taravella Trojan, plays for the San Diego Legion now, so we hope to see him on TV in the MLR this season. But those games will be from Las Vegas. They haven't said, I don't think they've said exactly where they're playing in Vegas yet, whether they'll be in the Raiders Stadium or in the old UNLV Stadium where the Sevens used to be. I'm not sure if that one is still working. I know they were looking to knock it down and build a new one. But we'll see what happens with that. But so, yeah, you'll see Peter Malcolm playing. And obviously a lot of other MLR players with Florida connections playing as well. As we're on MLR, I will mention that Dallas Jackals decided rather late in the proceedings to not play this season in MLR. They were going to start this season 2021, but after signing players, they decided that was the time to decide they weren't playing until 2022. So they had the dispersal draft this past week with some players going to other teams, other players deciding to take a 50% sort of buyout and just leave the team and be free agents. So we'll see what happens with those players and where they end up. They didn't really announce where they were going as of yet. So they obviously probably have to just sign contracts with those new teams before they can be announced. All right, so our third quick thing is going to be our updates on our tournaments. The 2 biggest tournaments in Florida, Tropical Sevens and Rugby Fest. I'm not going to throw Surfing Sevens in there quite yet. Maybe we're number 3. But Rugby Fest is scheduled for next month, February 20th, so 3 weeks from yesterday. And Tropical Sevens scheduled for the end of March, early April. So at this time, let's bring in John Siner Oh, and there is Charlie. We have a Charlie
hello.
signing. Charlie, welcome to your podcast.
My apologies. My apologies.
But Charlie is with us for now. He can't produce. He looks like he's on his phone. But we'll see if Charlie gets
good thing right now I'm already off the phone, so
oh, this is the computer.
But good thing I gave you that training just 5 minutes before, huh? So you could get started at least.
It was a crash course, and I'm surprised my concussion-addled brain remembered any of it. But we somehow did. So let's bring in John. Do you have control now, Charlie, or are you still?
Yeah, I supposedly have some. Yes.
Let's bring in John Steiner if we can from Tropical Sevens. Yeah, while you put some of those banners up that I forgot to put up.
Yeah, of course. And I think you messed up the intro.
Oh, quite possibly.
I think I only saw Ronnie, and then you cut it off.
Was there? I think. Was there other stuff after that?
Oh yeah, the actual.
All right. Well,
but well, don't worry. We'll do it at the end.
We'll play it later on. We'll play it later on for sure. But let's bring in John Steiner. I'm going to hit the button to bring John Steiner in, director of Tropical Sevens. John, how are you up in Orlando?
Hello, gentlemen. You guys are killing it as usual. Thanks for having me on again.
I'm not sure about that.
Not really.
We're killing the future of Florida Rugby podcasts. There's no doubt about that. But we appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening, John. Obviously, John, director of Tropical Sevens, did not happen last year, obviously due to the pandemic. But we're hoping to have something here in 2021 for Tropical Sevens, John. I know we've got a new format that was sort of announced recently over the last few weeks. So why don't you fill us in on the latest update with Tropical Sevens and this new format?
Yeah, okay. I mean, obviously, we were very disappointed about having to cancel last year. We missed it only by a few weeks, and that was really, really unfortunate. But we've had a great response from the community. We have, we're an international tournaments. We had people coming from all over the world last year. It was really going to be a big event. Australia coming and from pretty far away. So that was a pretty good deal. But I don't know if are you still good?
Yeah, hold on. Charlie, there's all sorts of feedback coming. I can't hear John. All right, there we go. Let's try again, John.
All right. No, I was just saying, obviously, it was unfortunate we had to cancel.
Okay, now I'm back.
All right, there we go.
All right. Charlie.
Sorry about that.
I was just saying, obviously, it was unfortunate we had to cancel.
Now I'm hearing him in feedback.
I'm hearing me too.
The TV's on. It's a good thing we don't get paid for that. Otherwise, I'd fire you. All right, John. Let's get back to the real stuff. Yeah, fill us in on where this tournament stands as of January 31st.
So, so after we had to cancel last year, we had actually a great response from all of the teams that were supposed to come and others that said, listen, we still support this event. We're definitely coming next year. We expected to be in a much different place now.
Right.
And we're still, struggling with the uncertainty that COVID is providing. So there has not been a lot of return to rugby as yet. People are creeping back, some states better than others. So we wanted to be in a position where we could do something to try to help the return to rugby somehow, some way, knowing that we won't be able to do the full scale tournament that we normally do. We know we're not going to get international teams coming like we normally do. So it's going to be fairly USA focused, and that's all right. We just want to do something that's going to be able to meet up with the needs of the rugby community. So our philosophy is a little bit of reverse engineering the tournament. So instead of offering, a tournament, all these age groups, we're saying, listen, you guys can come and any team can come for a rugby experience. And if you want to come and be in a bubble and just do a training camp and have access to all the fields and the experience of that, fine. And then you can ramp it up from there. If you want to do scrimmages with other teams that are there, we'll organize that. If you want to do matches, we'll organize that. And then assuming there's enough teams in a specific division or category, then we'll organize the whole tournament. So we've had a lot of actually great response from that. We just announced it about 10 days, 2 weeks ago, and we've had a great response. A lot of people were calling me saying, John, can you please have your tournament this year because we're ready to come play and nothing else is going on.
Right.
So, we had a lot of positive pressure to go ahead and do something, and we've been able to do it. So we've secured the facility. Everything is ready to go. Registration is now open. We've got a great response from teams that say they're going to come. And it looks like, kind of across the board, we'll have enough teams in the age brackets to run a tournament style competition. And that's really, really good news. Understanding that there's certain states and parts of the country that just simply won't come. But we've had a lot of great responses, and teams are lining up, and some big names are planning to be there. So it's exciting. We want to be a part of this return to play for the community, and just kind of help move rugby along. And again, the responses that I'm getting are like, thank you for doing this. Thank you for being doing something positive. And in that light, we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're being COVID responsible and following protocols and making sure that it's still a safe and healthy environment. So,
yeah, speaking of all that, obviously, how has the city and the county been in response to you guys? Are they limiting the number of kids? Obviously, it's a nice big, expansive area there that you have to be able to space out everybody, whatever they want to do, whether it's play a scrimmage or just do some drills, etc. How have the city and county been?
So, we're in a bit of a luxury in Florida because it's been one of the more relaxed states in terms of lockdowns and protocols. So we're in a good position there, much different in different parts of the country. So we, technically there's no limitations on what we can do. And you may know this, but, youth sporting events and sporting events in general are happening in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
My
daughter plays softball and she hasn't stopped playing yet.
So. Well, exactly. And my kids, now they played the fall season in youth soccer, and now they're playing the spring season that just started this week. And, there's, thousands of kids out on those fields. So, there's protocols with mask wearing and, social distancing and so on. So there are some, protocols in place, but there's no limitations on what we can do. So it's really up to the, the responsibility of the teams, making sure that they're being compliant and doing the safe, safeguarding methods. And then from a event organizer, we're doing our part to make sure that it's everything is being communicated properly and everybody's having a healthy environment. So we're actually very fortunate from a COVID environment, and the teams that are telling me that they have the green light to come and play, they're ready to roll, ready to rock and roll. So they're like, yeah, if you got it set it up, we're going to be there and we're going to play. So.
Awesome. Sure. How many teams are you expecting perhaps? Obviously things could change.
Well,
last minute, but how many teams you sort of have 100% committed at the moment?
So we're obviously in a much, much different place than we would be on a normal event year. So it was really the turn of the year into 2021 where we started to get teams saying, okay, we're thinking about traveling. Are you open? We'd really like to come. And then it's kind of snowballed over the last just 3 weeks or so. And last year, last year, we were going in with about 130 plus teams into the tournament, which is obviously a very big tournament. And I don't know exactly where we're going to be. We're ready to scale up. We've probably got 25 commits already, and if we're at 50, that's pretty good, but we may be over that. We're going to get we're ready for a lot of last minute signups. So yeah, and the state, the current state right in Florida, which we normally get a pretty decent participation, they're just returning to play this week, really. Yep. So they're just kind of getting their feet on the ground. There's been no Florida teams that have, are amongst those top 25. So we know we're going to get a few that are going to want to play. So
for sure.
Yeah, we're thinking in the 50 team range, which is still a pretty decent sized tournament.
Yeah.
But we hope for even more, but we'll see how it comes. We're just ready for the last rush that'll come probably towards the end.
Yeah, no doubt. I know I will talk to the Ruggerfest guys in a minute, but I know the cancellation of Savannah, I think perhaps impacted things, giving people, once they lost that tournament, they were looking for other things to do. And hopefully you'll get some stragglers from that event as well. Obviously, international travel restrictions hurting. I know you have obviously a ton of teams come down from Canada. I know Canada announced this past week that they were going to have some pretty severe quarantine restrictions when people come back to Canada. Hopefully those are gone. Perhaps in March we can get some teams down here. But it's great to hear there is going to be an event, whether it's a smaller size event. I think it's just going to be great that we're having something. So how can teams register, John, and get involved with this year's tournament?
So it's pretty easy. Just go to our website, tropicalsevens.com, and all the information is there. We're actually calling it the Rugby Reboot. and we're excited about that. And it kind of just explains a little bit more what I just said a minute ago about how you can customize your experience based on the needs of your team. And you can even bring younger teams. So if you want to bring a U12, U10, or lower, we'll provide the facility for you to come and have a rugby experience. So the registration platform is right off of our website. It's also on our social media and so on. So you can definitely. It's really easy to register. Good that you mentioned the Canadians, because you're right. We get a ton of Canadians that love to come down and play, and they're a key part of our tournament. And they've reached out to me as well, saying that our COVID protocols are just too strict. That, that when they return, they have to do mandatory 2-week quarantine. That's pretty strictly followed by Canadian authorities. So the Canadians said not this year, but we're already ready to come for 2022. So that's a very positive thing, is that 2022 already looks amazing. So I think the future is quite bright for this tournament, and we're ready to keep hosting well into the future.
No, definitely. It's obviously the biggest and best event in Florida, and is gaining national and international recognition. I love the fact that you're going to have the younger kids, because I know some of the kids down here get tired of playing each other. So hopefully we'll get some teams coming down from elsewhere in the South or anywhere else that love to come play some rugby against some different teams. Well, John, I appreciate the time. I think we'll perhaps chat with you again next month and see where things are at and get an update on Tropical Sevens. Give us the dates again.
So normally we run the Friday, Saturday of Easter weekend, which will be the 2nd and 3rd of April. But the way we've structured it is that you can come as early as Monday, I think it's the 29th of March, and you can play all the way through to Easter Sunday, which would be the 4th of April. So again, if you just want to do a training camp, you're welcome to come in and do that. Competition days will be the 2nd and the 3rd, which is the normal dates. But other than that, we're ready and open and excited about being able to contribute and give something back to hopefully to the rugby community that really responds well to it.
No, for sure. Everybody will be very hungry for rugby by that point if they're not already. Well, thanks, John. Appreciate you spending the time with us, and we'll see you in a few weeks here and get another update. Tropicalsevens.com if you're interested in getting a team involved in that amazing tournament. Once again, thanks, John. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, gentlemen. Keep up the good work. Appreciate it.
Cheers. See you then.
Cheers.
So there's John Siner with a Tropical Sevens update. I know some people will be interested in that tournament. An amazing facility there up in Orlando. It feels right by the hotel as well as a golf course. And it was a huge tournament 2 years ago and was looking to be even more of a monster event in 2020 until it was canceled. So obviously 2021 being a little different for them. But if you feel like going up to Orlando for a week and spending a time with your team in a camp or playing some games, certainly reach out to John at tropicalsevens.com. Now, the biggest tournament probably in the history of Florida Rugby, going back 30 plus years, I think now. Well, I'll ask these guys exactly how many. Actually, the one guy we got with us today, Neil Cohen from Ruggerfest Fort Lauderdale, or Fort Lauderdale Ruggerfest, I should call it. We do have another Ruggerfest, or I think we have a couple of other Ruggerfests. Maybe Neil can fill us in. Here's Neil fixing his headphones. Neil, can you hear me?
Ross,
Neil, are you there?
I can't hear anything you're saying, unfortunately. I'm trying to log through the computer instead of the phone.
I can hear you, but you can't hear me. All right, we'll come back. We'll come back to Neil in a minute. Having all sorts of technical issues here. This is why we're an amateur podcast, talking Florida Rugby occasionally whenever we feel like we can help get it going. But we'll get back to Neil and Ruggerfest in a minute. Obviously, it's coming up February 20th. They're turning it into a 10s tournament this season, which appears to have had a great response to it. They've got tons of teams, especially with the cancellation of Savannah, and some teams. I heard yesterday from Neil that Life are bringing a team down to play some 10s, so that should be awesome. We'll get to Neil in a minute. Neil, wave your hand if you can hear me at some point. I can see you in the green room. If you can hear me, wave your hand and we'll bring you back in. All right, let's get to our games from this weekend. Let me see if I can pull up well, actually, before I pull up the schedule, let's get to our game of the week, which at the moment is pretty much whatever Charlie videotapes, because we haven't had too many videos or photos sent in from the teams out there. And Charlie does get around South Florida and gets the videotape sometimes twice, 2 spots, even 3. He has some help in the community, so he does have some assistants that will go out and videotape other stuff. So this week, Charlie went down to Key Biscayne. We'll get to that with the kids in a minute in the morning, and then went up to Dyer Park in West Palm Beach to videotape the first game of the U23, the brand new U23 season, which is taking place in Florida just because a lot of the colleges and universities, especially the public ones, aren't allowing their teams to play just for liability reasons. So U23 began this weekend with FIU and FAU. And let me see. I'm not sure where I have I know Charlie said he had some highlights, but I'll be damned if I'm going to be able to find them. But we do have highlights. Hopefully we'll get them back at some point today. But let's bring in Ronnie Suarez, the coach of the team formerly known as FIU. Ronnie, how are we doing?
Good. How are yourself?
I'm all right. I'm scrambling here, but we're live, and I think we're going. Charlie might be back. Let me see if he's in. Charlie, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Yes, he is. It's a Christmas miracle in January. Charlie is back with us.
Brilliant.
Hi, Ronnie.
I can hear him. I can see him. Charlie, thanks. Charlie, how can we get those FIU? Sorry, God, man, I'm going to have to correct myself. How do we get those Okapi U23 versus Palm Beach U23 highlights?
Yeah, that training didn't go that far, huh?
No, it stopped at the intro. We thought you'd be back by the intro, so I didn't know what those highlights are. So
Okay.
Charlie, perhaps pop these highlights up here.
Yes. There they come.
It was 19-7, I think it was in the end. Is that right?
Yeah, 19-7.
19-7 in favor of Palm Beach, who obviously, as FAU, have had a couple of decent campaigns over the last 2 years. And here's some highlights. Now we'll see if they run relatively smoothly, which they are. We were having some choppy trouble lately. That's Palm Beach U23 and those. I don't even know how to describe those jerseys. Ronnie, how would you describe them? You were closer than anybody yesterday.
White and camouflage.
There you go, Spencer Gray attempting a penalty kick in the first half, which just went a little wide. As you can see, Dyer Park with you can always recognize Dyer because of the big hill behind the posts. Okapi in the pink. So again, FIU wearing pink. I'm not sure how Ronnie feels about that.
That's all right.
I'm not sure if that one missed. I think it did.
Yes, he missed.
A couple of early missed kicks, but I think this is the first try here from FAU. Oh, excuse me, Palm Beach U23 is goes wide and a try in the corner there. Yeah, those jerseys, they almost look like White Claw cans. That's the only way I can really describe them at the moment.
We're having a contest at some point to see who has the best jersey, right?
We are going to do something with jerseys, yes. Here's a first try from Okapi. Actually, the only try of the afternoon for Okapi U23s. It is weird seeing a team in pink, not Palm Beach, playing at that field, but a nice opening try there for the boys in pink, and the conversion was good to make it. I think at that point, were you guys in the lead at that point, Ronnie? 7-5?
Yeah, we were at 7-5.
So Okapi U23 is in the lead as the video gets a little choppy here. Let's see what we can do. As Palm Beach U23 go wide. Out wide to Henoch Germain, who he's a tough man to bring down. Ronnie, what can you tell us about Henoch Germain? He's been impressive since I remember his Sevens debut a couple of years ago for FAU, and where everybody was like, "Who's that guy?"
Yeah, he's shifty. He likes to be close to the line. He likes to attack, really flat, and he tends to be so shifty that guys think, like he's close enough that you can get it, but he always gets away, man. He's good with it.
There was a quick line out there throw that came back. Ronnie, what was your view of that one?
Oh man,
off the record.
He said it was inside the 5. I thought he was right on the line. So, and
here's Henoch Germain with I think was this the last try for Palm Beach? I think that sort of sealed the game in the last minute. Henoch.
Yeah, we tried to kick out for a line out stayed in.
Basics, Ronnie. You can't miss those ones to touch. We know what those can turn into. Obviously, that wasn't the difference in the game in the end, but in the end, a 19-7 win for Palm Beach U23 as they get their first ever U23 season off to a start. Ronnie, tell us a little bit about your squad, who it's comprised of. I know you have a couple of actual Okapi kids in there as well. How are your numbers looking? Who are some kids to really watch out for in this team?
Yeah, we're mixed up. So it's right now I would say 50-50 FIU, 50% Okapi guys.
Okay.
It's an interesting dynamic, we're trying to we have with FIU, we have a 2.5 hour section of practice that we normally have 3 days a week. And now we don't have that. So at Okapi, we only practice 2 times a week, and it's only for an hour. So that short time frame doesn't let us get, too much work in. So it's the dynamic of trying to get the guys on the same page. And you know, try to catch guys to catch up to the way and style that we play. But it's been interesting, man. We have a couple of really good guys from Okapi that you know are standing out. Nico Zaramera, who's played with Miami Youth and then he went to Okapi.
Okay.
And he's if I remember correctly, he's still at Dartmouth, and he's down here right now. So he's playing with us. Jack, the guys from FIU normally, Jack Frexa, who's our our flanker. So I have him and Nico on the edges. I also Davide Villa. He plays fullback. He's another solid, talented athlete, and he's interesting. That's his brother there on screen, Leo, who's another talented back. And yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be an interesting season.
Now, are you guys practicing in Weston, or are you practicing in Miami, or splitting it both?
No, practicing in Weston. We're kind of stuck with being able to practice in Miami just because of the fact that FIU won't let us practice on campus.
Right. Obviously, Miami was having their field troubles as well.
Yeah. So right now we're all traveling up and practicing in Weston, and yeah, it's been all right. Been good.
Yeah, long trip. Hopefully, what time do they start practice? Hopefully, it's not at 6:30 and you have to go up that way in rush hour. But
it's actually 8:30. So we start at 8:30, and we have 8:30 to 9:30.
But an hour isn't a lot of time to get work in, as you know, as a coach.
Yeah, and that's the problem that we have right now, and we'll be getting there. We needed to play a game. We basically got together 4 practices ago, so it was 4 practices and the first game. So we needed this first game to kind of like iron out things, see where we were struggling at, and it should be. I think this game was the real test.
Talk about the game. How did it go? I mean, obviously, it was a close game. It was a 1-score game until that last try.
Yeah, it went well.
Against a team that had been playing together for 1 or 2 years, a lot of them.
Yeah, it was. It went well. I mean, I thought I say that we had 80% positive out of it. I thought our defense played well. We were really stuck in our half quite a lot, and that was credit to Spencer's boot, and just putting us back. But we played good defense. It was 5-0 at the half, and I mean that try was the try that they scored was right before the half. They went into the half 5-0, and then we came out. We scored, like I would say, maybe 10 minutes into the half, and the last 2 tries that FAU scored were towards the end of the game. I would say in the last 10 minutes. The last try was basically the last play of the game. Yeah, so I mean, I thought it was good. It was a good tight game. Typical FIU game of the last 2 years, where it's been back and forth, and it's always somebody winning. At the end where it's real tight.
Well, good stuff, bud. How can you give it? What update can you give us on your other coaching gig?
Oh man, right now we're waiting on the military to give us a date for the military championships. Okay. And once they do give us that set date, it's go time, man. And the Coast Guard boys, we're fired up, ready to go. So it's just a waiting game right now.
And how have you been keeping in touch with the Coast Guard guys?
Just chatting, chat. Keep it positive. There's those guys like to joke, so there's that WhatsApp group's pretty funny. So it gets good, man.
Good stuff. And how's your sevens program coming along? I think I saw you have a practice just recently. What are you planning to do this summer?
Yeah, we've been practicing. We've been doing two times a month. We practice on Sundays.
Don't know.
What's that?
I said that's the Stormers for those that don't know.
Yeah, Stormers. We practice 2 times a month, and we've got a decent squad. We've been practicing for, I would say, since Florida opened up practices. The field that we use in Stewart, they gave us the go ahead, and we've been practicing steady. And we're the outlook is that when summer comes, we'll be playing sevens. We've already kind of decided as a group that we'll be playing in the 10s tournament for Ruggerfest. So
awesome.
That'll be our first go for all the practices that we'll see if these practices have done anything.
Well, there's apparently some talented teams coming down, so you'll certainly get a test, and hopefully we'll see you that first Saturday in June at Surf and Sevens as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We've got Birmingham Moseley coming in from England, and I'm sure they'll be ready to go. I saw they had snow on their pitch this past week, so they'll be looking for some rugby come June, no doubt. Well, thanks again, Ronnie, for joining us. Good luck the rest of the way, and I'm sure we'll speak to you here down the road.
No worries. Cheers, buddy. Thanks.
Cheers, Ronnie. All right, let me get Ronnie out of there. Charlie, that was a good chat there. I know you're back here. So
Always.
Ronnie's one of the best coaches in the state, and obviously got that job with the Coast Guard, and he's managing to juggle both at the moment. So let's get to our other scores from this past week. As we mentioned, the U23 division opened up their play. Let's get to those other scores when Charlie has a second.
I'm getting there.
This was obviously January 30th. I can start talking about them. We were supposed to have Miami against Boca. Obviously, Miami's struggling with field availability. They haven't even been able to practice as far as I know. I think they were working on something with the Tridents and perhaps a field sharing option there. That game didn't happen. Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale sort of happened. It wasn't a matrix match. It ended up being a friendly, which I roughed with. It was a lot of points to 0. But both teams had a good time, except for the guy that decided it was a good idea to get a little violent at some point in the second half off the field. Luckily, nothing came of that. I won't go into too much details regarding that incident. Those of you that witnessed it know what happened. But I think everybody had a good time in the end, despite the score. It was a beautiful day out there. So going down from the top here, we'll go with some of the big scores. Tallahassee Ocala played their first 2. Tallahassee is an existing, they were an existing team, then kind of went away for a little bit and then came back. Ocala, a brand new side, playing their first match this past Saturday. We'll get to the 2 representatives from those 2 teams in a little bit here to chat about that contest. Ave Maria, with their first game of the season, took a bit of a hard defeat at the hands of Crew B. Orlando, Daytona is another game we'll talk about perhaps later in the podcast due to a bit of controversy in that game. Lakeland defeated Indian River. We saw the result of that FAU game. The team formerly known as UCF handed the team formerly known as UF, who have been struggling over the last couple of years, 54-10. Not a huge surprise there. The Key Biscayne Boca game was canceled due to some COVID problems down in Key Biscayne. A ton of kids in quarantine down there. Naples shut out Cape Pirates on the road. That was a nice win there for the Bears. And in Jacksonville defending state champs, Charlie. I always
yes.
forget.
Yes, the last time we had one, yes.
Yeah, so Jacksonville, the defending state champs from a couple of years ago, beat Okapi 29-10. All right, that's our main scores from this past Saturday. I didn't mention the referees like I was supposed to, but as you I know on your little graphic there, we had. Listen, I want to say a big thanks to all the referees out there. Some have decided not to referee this season due to COVID concerns, but many have stepped up to referee in towns other than their own, traveled 2 or 3 hours to go referee games. So I want to really thank all of those referees. I know I have a ton traveling in February from one coast to the other to help out. So yeah, this past weekend, Luis Lucas, Kenny Handley, Scott Duval, Randall Johnson, Kiwi Nevin, Kai Martinovich. Kenny actually ref 2 games. Alfredo Lopez, Yusuf Johnson, and Tom Ciampa. I really appreciate you guys, and hopefully we'll continue to go out there and ref games in a safe.
Let me say one thing that I always have to say. I'm very grateful for the referees, because the reason I can post these scores pretty much like at 8 at night on Saturdays is because the referees they send them to me really fast, and that's why I can do it. I can't do it without them.
The clubs aren't the best at posting scores always. Some clubs are better than others, but it's great that the referees are willing to jump on their phone and text you the updated scores. We'd love to see highlights and photos from any teams out there. Again, we've just got the ones this week. I think we may have some from FSU. From Tallahassee 23, and Ocala. So if you want to, what's the link, Charlie? Is it rugbyfl.com/upload, right?
Correct. Yes.
Just upload your photos and videos straight to that Dropbox link. Again, rugbyfl.com/upload. And
let me apologize, because as much as I try to put them fast, I also typically mess up 1 or 2. And this weekend I got wrong the Jacksonville game, I think, and the Lakeland. But I always get somebody that is watching, and thank you.
Yes, if anybody's watching and wants to message Charlie the scores, you can email him at charlie@rugbyfl.com. It's always good to have as many people sending scores in, so we can confirm that they're the correct scores. And also, Please remember that all official scores and league standings may be found at the FRU website, not at rugbyfl.com, but you can always find them a lot quicker at rugbyfl.com. But all the official stuff is at floridarugby.org. Can't forget that, Charlie. We must remember to mention that.
Correct. Yes.
All right. We're going to have another chat here with some other individuals who played a match this weekend. Michael Gomez of Tallahassee Rugby. I think he's still hanging around here. He might just be audio only. And I'm going to bring in Nick Hatcher as well from Ocala. Gentlemen, welcome. Mike Gomez, can you hear me? There he is.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
I think you're at work right now. I can hear you. Thanks for taking a quick break to join us. We'll get to you first. We can get you out of here. Nick Hatcher, former FAU as well.
What's going on, guys? What's up, Mike? This is our rookie Blade.
What's on, Nick?
Hey, guys.
Blade, who are you? Introduce yourself to us, Blade.
From Ocala and ex-football player, and been friends with Nick for a while. And he said, "Hey, you want to play some rugby?" And I didn't know what he said at first, but here we are, and pretty passionate about the sport now.
Awesome. We'll get to you in a second. Let's get to Michael first, because I know he's got to go back to work. So, Mike, a long time. Tell us a bit about yourself, Mike, and your background with rugby.
Yeah, so I started playing at Florida State back in 2010. Played all 4 years while I was going to school. After I was done with school, the club was kind of in a transition period. We had just lost our longtime head coach. He was the head coach for a few years. We lost our director, and so this one guy had taken up the mantle as head coach, and I was like, well, let me stick around and help him out. And 3 short months later, he handed the reins over to me in November of 2014. And since then, I've been the head coach of Florida State. And over the past year or so, I've had tons of guys, well, tons, but 10 or so guys just bugging me like, hey, I want to play rugby. I want to play rugby. I said, well, do you go to Florida State? I said, no. I said, well, I can't help you out. And so it was actually the day after our Gulf Coast match last year. And I said, all right, I'm calling a meeting. If you want to play rugby in Tallahassee, you want to make it happen, you got to be at this meeting. I had about 8-10 guys show up. We came up with a plan, how to start a club from the ground up, what we should do, what should we do. And we had a pretty good plan set in place. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. So we still tried to fight through. We rallied some guys, did some recruiting. And then, of course, the union came forward with this U23 division. And so all the other colleges had a men's team to support them. Yeah. And we had a U23 team to support our men's team.
Right, you had the other way around.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the history of Tallahassee men's rugby. Now, I know when I started here, they weren't in Florida Rugby. They were part of a different geographical.
Deep South.
They came into Florida for a while and then vanished for a little bit. But yeah, great. What happened last time with the Conquistadors? I remember them coming a couple of years and then vanished again.
Yeah. So the last time, I played with them a little bit on and off. I was really focusing on coaching at the time. That's when Florida State was making its national championship run. So I wasn't as involved with the club as I should have been. And they had this one coach. I guess there was a discrepancy between expectations from the players and expectations from that coach. I think the players said they wanted to be at this high level. And that coach, having come from a high level, said, well, to be at this level, you need to do this, this, and this.
Right.
And the players kind of ran them off. They were like, well, no, we want to be the best D4 team, not the best D2 team. So they ran them off. I got asked, they were like, hey, do you want to coach our team? And I said, no way. I don't need a second unpaid gig. And then that was the end of that team.
Gotcha. Well, it's great to see Tallahassee back. And what are some of the challenges of the rugby before we get to yesterday's game? What are some of the challenges of rugby in the Panhandle?
Geography, because We're an hour and a half from I-75, so we're in a rugby desert. I had a former assistant coach, someone who coached with me. He moved to Tampa, and he was complaining about something. I said, hey, you've got 3 men's teams 40 minutes away from you that you could play for. If I wanted to play rugby, I'd have to go to Atlanta or Panama City Beach. So it's always tough getting refs. It's always tough getting teams to come in. A lot of teams in our area have different seasonalities. A lot of those, like just north of Florida, teams like to play in the fall when we're still playing sevens.
Yeah.
So scheduling those friendlies is tough. But we have spectacular weather. So
this is very true. How are numbers looking? Did you have to use anybody for both games yesterday, or were you able to field 2 full side?
Yeah. So we have a couple guys who are still students, but like my super seniors and the 4th-year players, stuff like that. I'd understand if this was their last year, playing for Florida State, they would want that opportunity. But seeing as there is no Florida State, I kind of talked to them and said, hey, you're 3 months away from playing men's league anyway. Just hop on up. We kind of need you.
Right.
But that was really only I think only 3 current students got on the field for Tallahassee men's, and then of course no Tallahassee men's guys got on the U23. We're all pretty old,
and obviously you don't really have a pipeline of high school rugby yet there in Tallahassee. Is that something you perhaps would like to get going down the road?
Hopefully. I mean, I think it was last week at training. I got one of the starting punters for the high school football team to come out to training.
Nice.
And he had a blast. Yeah, he had a blast. And he had a boot for sure. So
now you just got to teach him how to play 10 or 15.
Or 15. Yeah. Well, hey, he scored a try. He scored a try off a fullback insert. His first day at training. So I was like, hey, kid obviously has got some sort of talent. But no, I've just been kind of following all the high school football coaches on Twitter and trying to hit them up and see if they'll talk back to me. That's how I got the high school kid to come out. Actually, was just following him on Twitter.
Good stuff. Let's talk about yesterday's game. Obviously, it was a little one-sided, but hopefully everybody got through it safely. And obviously, you guys had some.
Yeah.
How did it go? And who are some players we need to look out for up there?
So, for Tallahassee, we've got this great transfer. His name's Austin Morris. He's joined us from Chattanooga. We've had him slotted in at 10. John Cruz at the lock. He's a big workhorse for us. I mean, always at the ruck, always at the breakdown. And then we've got a very solid contingency of FSU alumni. We have Cody Boswell and Evan Barada. They were our center pairing when we did go to the national championship and the year after.
Gotcha.
Alex Bluto, also an FSU alum, out at the wing. Damian Maradona at hooker, which is a pretty important position, and he was the captain for the national championship team, so it's good that he's still around. But yeah, other than that, just everyone's ready to work, ready to play, and ready to have fun.
That's the number one. That's the number one priority. Well, great to see you guys with the big win yesterday. Obviously, U23 side lost a tight one to the team formerly known as FGCU.
But that was a great match. They were down 14-0 at the half. I can't speak highly enough of that U23 side. We had at least 5 guys who was their first match. And I mean, Naples had, I mean, you call them what you want, but they were professional players. You sign a contract to play for a men's team, you're a professional player. And they had their 2 South Africans there, and
well,
those guys, those guys were all over the ball. Hey, I was touched for that, and I told them, hey, you guys are the real deal. And they're like, yeah, Brew, of course, we're from South Africa. And it's like, oh, okay, well, of course, no wonder you know what you're doing. And then really to just lose a tight one like that, with those players on that pitch, absolutely causing havoc on our quick ball was really good to see. They were down 14-0 at the half, came back and tied it up. Naples went up one. We came back and tied it up, and then Naples got another one in the last 7. So it was very exciting to see the U23s pull it together and rally and put points on the board and hold a good team to only 4 tries.
Great stuff. Yeah, I forgot to mention that Naples D2 side wasn't playing on Saturday, so they may have sent up a couple of young boys from that team to fill in. But that's a great result for you guys, no doubt.
Oh yeah. Players, U23 players to look for. Definitely Ryan Falzoy. We've had him all over the back line. We've got him at 9 this year. Very dynamic, probably the fastest guy on our side. And then Bear Bollinger. This is his 2nd year playing rugby. And between the men's game and the U23, he had a hat trick.
Oh wow!
He had a beautiful poach too. Just knew how to play the ball perfectly. And I looked at him on the touchline after. I was like, Bear, looks like you know how to play rugby now. And he laughed and smiled. And he's definitely definitely a shining star in that pack.
Well, great stuff, Michael. I appreciate you taking the time with us, and I also appreciate what you do up there in Tallahassee. You've been doing it now for 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Keeping things going up there. So this is the first time we've talked. We've talked via email plenty of times, but great to chat with you.
Oh, yeah.
Let's say quote in person. I appreciate you helping out on the refereeing side of things as well. So thanks to Mike Gomez. I'm sure we'll chat to you later this season. Good luck with the rest of the way.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Thank you.
Cheers, Mike.
Bye.
Yeah, bye. There's Mike Gomez from Tallahassee and their U23 program. Let's go to the team. The Tallahassee team beat. We won't mention the score, but I just want to say congratulations, Nick, for getting a team on the field. It's not an easy thing to do. I'm going to bring Kerry O'Malley in a little bit just to talk about how you can get a first year team going. But talk to us about how and why you got this. Well, first of all, tell us a little about yourself, Nick.
Alrighty, can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yes.
One of my pods died on my right ear here, so I didn't know if that was a mic one.
Yeah, you just fine.
But about me is my name is Nick Hatcher. I'm from Ocala, Florida. My rugby background is I played for 3.5 years for FAU, Florida Atlantic University. I was the captain for that team for a little while. I had a blast. I was a preferred walk-on at FAU for football. I actually signed a football scholarship with a different school at the time. Things didn't work out. And so when I transferred to FAU, I couldn't play for the university's team because I was on another team's roster at the moment, but I could play for the rugby team. And so I wanted to stay active. I joined the rugby team, and God bless his soul, but Coach John, he welcomed me right in. And the following year I could have went and played football, but I decided to stay on the rugby pitch, and I said this is where I need to be.
Awesome.
So that's the history about me. And now I've graduated for 2 years. So graduated in 2018, and now I'm back in Ocala, and me and a few buddies were sitting at a bar drinking some pints.
That's how all teams get started.
I'm sorry?
I said that's how all teams get started.
Pretty much, and the best ideas out there. And we were sitting at the bar, and I was like, man, Ocala's really got some great athletes. If you look at the National Football League and the NFL, the amount of players from Ocala is actually pretty surprising. There's some great athletes in this town. And I was like, there's a bunch of washed up athletes like me and a few other my good friends that want that second chance. And, here it is. It's an instant 20, 30 friends. Or I would say friends or brothers. And we believe with these guys. And, it's great. I'm happy to bring it on. And then we have one of our fellow rookies with us here, Blade. And he played his first game yesterday. But that's a little background about me.
Awesome. Now, when did you decide? When talk about the timeline? When did you guys decide to get this team together?
We decided to get this team together. So let's say it's January now. The end of October, we probably had our first. I think we had our first practice. It was like November 7th.
Oh wow!
Something along there that we just got together and threw around the ball. So we have not been together very long, but I would say we've conquered quite a few milestones from the time being together.
You got the jerseys. I know you and I had a discussion about getting jerseys. They look good. I can't really see them on the camera. What's on the jerseys? I know you guys You're the Ocala, and my memory's failing me.
That's good. The Gladiators.
The Gladiators. That's right.
Yep,
So what's on the front of the jerseys?
We came up with that name. We had a few. We put an Instagram poll up, and in our city, a lot of us did, with a few names that we had kind of slimmed it down, and the city chose the Gladiators, so that was pretty fun. That was cool. On the front of our jersey, we have our crest, which is like a big gladiator's helmet with two. I guess the best way to describe them is like royal leaves that they like maybe the Greeks or the Romans would use. And that's what we got. We're kind of like a charcoal gray with a white, and on the back we have gladiators and our numbers.
Good stuff. Now, Ocala, obviously, you're how far from Gainesville?
We're about 30 minutes, 45 minutes with traffic.
And from Orlando? That's probably the other nearest sort of sizable city, right?
Yeah, we're about 45 minutes to an hour from Orlando, depending on traffic.
So when you first started this team, was there concerns that you wouldn't be able to pull in the numbers? I mean, I did a little bit of research before this. Ocala's only got 60,000 people. It would be the second smallest team, second smallest sort of area with the men's team. I know Sebastian Vero combined those two is still less than 60, but they've obviously managed to produce teams over the last few years. So were you slightly concerned about the ability to pull numbers?
Yes, a little bit. Not necessarily with the numbers of like a number of people. I know there's a lot of athletes here, but I was more worried about people because rugby is like unheard of in Ocala. Like nobody knows the sport, nobody knows the rule about it. They just know, oh, that's most people here are pretty Southern, and you'll get the answer of it's football with no pads. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's a real simple version of football, and it's a great way to, when I put it that way, for people that are unfamiliar with the game to come into the game, and it gets them already immediately interested by just saying it's like football. So with that site, now people want to play, and now it's just getting people to want to be here is what we're not necessarily struggling with, but working towards.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, again, you've only been 3 months in, so you get the ball rolling. Promote this game you had this weekend, and I'm sure people will be coming out. The city's been very supportive. I remember you and I talked a few weeks ago about the city being supported, and that's obviously a key thing. Talk about that.
So the city of Ocala has been absolutely fantastic, dealing with the county and the city, both parties. They're actually two separate departments here in Ocala, and both of them are very accepting, very easy for us to get fields, very willing to get game fields. We have girls telling us they want to create fan clubs, at the bars.
Love it.
That's great for the guys. It's always good to have fans there. Oh yeah. And we got the town was very easy to get sponsors. Everybody wants to sponsor. We already have 4, which is really good. We have a home bar. It's the Lodge in Ocala. Great spot, great food. And that's kind of how the city's supporting us, Ross. We have our first home game the 13th against Ave Maria, and I'm expecting a pretty big attendance for that.
Awesome stuff. And I know you and I also talked about this, the future of this club. You talked about perhaps getting the kids involved. Where do you see this team and this club in 5 years?
So in 5 years, what my envisionment is I'm 25 now. So in 5 years, I'll be 29, hitting 30. That would be when I would probably call it quits for me playing wise. But what I hope to do with the guys that are also my age, about 25, 26 now, my goal is to take about 4 or 5 of us and spread into the high schools, and actually develop high school teams is what I really would like to do. There's no high school team nowhere near Central Florida, Ocala of rugby. Yeah, and if I think we had just locally 4 or 5 teams just at the local high schools, it'd be a great start to the program. What I think is great is for kids to get seen more for opportunities to go to college. There's a lot of rugby universities that offer full scholarships. If they didn't get one for playing football, because the pool is so much greater, it's not necessarily athletic ability, just if you get seen or not. Some of the best athletes get overlooked just because there's so many football players. But for these kids that want the opportunity to get school paid for, want to show off their skills and go to the next level as an athlete, if we can get it into the high schools, this offers a whole nother road. And I think it'd be great for the community. Great
stuff. Well, stay with us here as we talk to Blade. I want to talk to Blade. First of all, that's an amazing first name, as for an athlete especially. Blade, I can see Blade. What position did you play yesterday, Blade?
I played fullback.
Okay, I can see Blade slicing through the midfield as a fullback. Blade, talk to us how you got into rugby and how your first game was yesterday.
All right. Well, actually, Nick hit me up a while back, and he was like, "I want you to come out, play some rugby with the guys." And I wasn't very interested at first, so I actually ended up ignoring a couple of texts of his that he sent, and I ended up. He hit me up maybe 3 weeks later after that, and I was sitting at home, and I was like, I miss team sports. So I was like, I'll give it a go. So I attended practice, and the guys that we have are they're just awesome. It's a good time. Learning the sport was a little challenging for me, you know, keep from throwing the ball forward and whatnot. But once you get the hang, this is something I see myself doing. But yeah, so yesterday was our first game, and just like high school ball for me, butterflies were outrageous. So yeah, no, it was definitely a learning experience, and I think just for everybody. I think it was like somebody mentioned that the first game was kind of like ironing out all the wrinkles, but it's just once you're out there and everything's so fluid, it's just a wholly different game than watching YouTube tutorials or just being out there in practice and then actually getting into a contact sport. So I had a lot of fun, and I'm definitely, this is probably one of the best decisions that I've made in a while. So
glad to hear. Now you're just going to tell all your friends about it. What's your what's your athletic background, Blade?
So I played football, baseball pretty much all my life. Varsity football pretty much all county, and I didn't really have a whole lot of scholarships or anything, but I've always been one of the just more talented kids on the team, but I just never really had the passion for it. So once high school was done and over with, I focused on, continuing my education and whatnot. And then, like I said, once Nick got around and kept begging me to be on the team, I was like, I'm going to give it a go. So this is, like I said, this is awesome. I'm extremely grateful. But Nick's been a great guy, and he's literally taken the reins of this operation, and he does a fantastic job. And I'm extremely excited to where this program's going.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing all the Ocala results this season, and look forward to seeing this club progress. Nick, your audio is somehow failed. He sounds like somebody from Star Wars. Nick, I'm gonna mute you for now, but we'll have you back on the show, I'm sure, at some point here to see how Ocala Rugby is progressing down the road. Blade and Nick, appreciate your time, and we'll see you down the road here. I'm gonna bring in Kerry O'Malley. She's still around here. I think she is. Let me kick out these two first. Gentlemen, thanks again. Let's bring in Kerry, the president of the Florida Rugby Union. Two teams there in Ocala, a brand new side, and Tallahassee is sort of reborn side that's had some issues over the last few years. But if anybody is out there that's looking to form a new team, Kerry, how do they go about doing that?
We actually have the information on our website.
Awesome.
So it's there. And when Nick had contacted me, I just said, all the information's there. I think the thing that Nick did really well, or that Ocala did really well, is when we talked, we said, you need bylaws. And they did the bylaws and got back to us, boom. Like 2 days later, he's like, all right, here's our draft of the bylaws. What do we need next? And so he just kept on it. And I think that one of the reasons Ocala will probably be successful, obviously, like Nick's excitement is contagious. Yeah. And one of the things that we talked about is him not being everything. So, we said, you have to have an executive board. Sometimes we'll have a club and someone will be like, I'm the president and the match secretary and the coach and the captain. So contact me for everything. And we tried to talk with him about putting other people into into executive positions and helping them along. So they might not know what they're doing in the beginning, but grow people along with them. So all the information's on there. You basically need bylaws, an executive board that has at least 2 different people on it. We helped them through the registration process. So for a new club, that means that we have to have Evan get in touch with USA Rugby and have them get put in the Sport Lomo system. But it's pretty straightforward. And like I said, it's all on the website. And then when people need hand-holding, they can contact usually me or Evan, and then we put them in touch with Ian when they said they wanted to try to play some games.
Good stuff. And there's the website there. Charlie just posted it. FloridaRugby.org. Now, Kerry, you've seen teams, in your time in Florida here come and go. What is the key to? I know you mentioned some of the ones there with Nick and his enthusiasm and delegating. What are some of the other things that new teams really need to get right in order to succeed down the road?
So I think that one of the things that's important, and we actually just had this discussion with someone, is that besides not having one person doing it all, but if you're able to, I don't want to say template out like how to do a certain job. So for a match secretary, say you have like a new match secretary, it's better to have a document that exists that's like, this is how the match secretary does things.
Yes.
And so then, if your match secretary flakes, then you have the information, the transfer of knowledge is really important. And so kind of having that exist. And I think creating traditions that kind of anchor the team is important, whether that be fundraisers, social events, things that you do before or after the game. And I think having some sort of culture or tradition that makes your club unique that your members hold on to, I think is valuable.
Awesome stuff. Any other new teams in the works that you know of other than Ocala, perhaps looking into next year? I know it's perhaps a little early and things are tough right now, especially numbers wise, I think for all teams, but are there any sort of other dead areas that you'd like to see clubs pop up in?
I don't think I don't think that there's any up and coming senior clubs. We'd really like to see, you had Gomez on earlier. We'd really like to see Tallahassee come back together. It's very hard for them because every away game for them is huge. Yes. And they don't have a lot of referees. So we'd really like to see them come back on board. And, a while back we had a couple, I want to say that Ocala had a club before and then they kind of went away. And then I think, there was at one point, I want to say a North Tampa team.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was a North Tampa team and there was a team in Port St. Lucie. And I don't know, kind of if they have enough people there to support it. But I mean, obviously you're seeing with Ocala that they're able to get that many guys out. It's just a matter of sustaining it.
Good stuff. I'm going to Kerry, I'm going to leave you in here. Charlie's got something to say, I think, although I think I muted you, Charlie. So go ahead.
Yeah, man. What's wrong with you?
You were typing too loud. That keyboard you've got from 1960 is far too loud.
No, I was going to say that one thing that I think clubs can do also is have the two ends of the ages, like having youth in your club. That sort of keeps you alive, and you have a purpose of developing players. Most clubs or teams don't do that. It's just a few. It's just a handful, right? And on the other hand, one thing I think that really would help is to keep the old boys within the club. That is a very traditional thing in other parts of the world. And typically they run the club, because now many times you see players that are, he's a captain, he's a president, and he's a treasurer, and sometimes a coach. He should be a player. A player is a player, and this, the administration and building the club should be left in the hands of people with more experience, for one, and maybe they have the time and they have connections and resources, and they can develop the club. And on the other hand, if you have little kids within your club, it's a much broader base, and and it's just so much fun and it's so enjoyable. I was at the Key Biscayne Festival this weekend, and there was one in Weston also, and it's amazing to see those little kids. They're going to become rugby players one day.
Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of the kids that are thriving. A lot of the teams that are thriving out there have a big old boy presence, and also a lot of them do have youth as well. Some teams focus more on the youth sometimes than they do on the adult side of things, but also depends on. I think a lot depends on where you are in Florida. Certain areas of the state being more transient than others, but it's great to see guys like Nick, especially going back to his hometown and really saying, "I want to have a rugby team in my hometown." Doesn't have one, a smaller town compared to most of the other towns in the state, and he got him going, got him up, and I'm sure he feels proud of that first game.
He's going to be a big star in that little town. For what I heard, huh?
if you've already got females wanting to set up fan clubs for the team, you must be doing something right. That's obviously a great recruiting tool as well. I will mention, Charlie, I'm not sure if you posted the link or not, but if anybody wants to jump in.
Not yet.
Charlie's going to post the link right now on the Facebook comments as well as the YouTube page. If you want to jump in and have a question for myself or Charlie or even Carrie, we won't hold her too long. It's getting a little late now. I'm going to get my kids to bed. We try to keep it to an hour, but it always seems to come over. But if anybody wants to jump on, Charlie's going to post in the chat. I see Billy Nielsen asked if anybody from the original time Ocala first put a team in back in 2003 was still around. I'll have to ask. Hopefully Nick can comment on that. So. Yeah, Carrie might have an answer to that. She's been around that long.
Yeah,
my memory is terrible, so I don't remember Ocala having a team back then. But
I asked them if they had anyone, because Ocala used to be called the Stallions, and I still think that's the best name ever. And they didn't seem, I don't think the people that I knew, the older people that played, but they did put on the best socials, so hopefully they'll hold that tradition strong, even though it's a bunch of new people.
Well, there is a bit of irony in that their old team was called the Stallions. I spoke to Nick before their first game, and their scheduled first game, which was a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him how things were going, and he's having issues with the jerseys, and I said, okay, get that worked on, and that was the reason he didn't get in that first game. And then he also mentioned that one of his players had injured his shoulder falling off a horse. So I don't think there's too many teams that will have that. Maybe Gainesville on occasion, but Ocala certainly the favorites to have people falling off horses and missing games. So again, if anybody wants to jump in, I think Charlie just posted there's some words of support from Ronnie Suarez. Wants 4 more years of Carrie. I'm not even going to comment on that. Carrie tried to give it up last time. But listen, she's a great asset to the union, and obviously things wouldn't be where they are without her. Let's talk a little bit, Charlie. Oh well, let's get to Neil. Neil from Fort Lauderdale. I think now we've got him on the line because Neil, we had some audio problems earlier. Neil, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me now?
I can. All right, let's get back to what we're talking about.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you now. Don't worry so much about the video, as long as we can hear you. Ruggerfest, February 20th. Obviously, Ruggerfest has struggled a little bit over the last few years due to various factors. Vegas, really becoming strong. Savannah, some organizational things. But from what I'm hearing, Ruggerfest looks like it could be one of the best Ruggerfests in recent years. Talk to us about this upcoming tournament in less than 3 weeks.
Well, we decided to restructure the tournament, turn it into a tens tournament. Thanks to our sponsor, Associates MD, we're giving away a $2,500 cash prize to the first place, winner take all. And second place will get like a trophy and maybe our stereotypical second place trophy that we give away, usually in the form of refreshment. But I think after Savannah canceled, we had a huge uptick in teams wanting to come, not to mention a giant cash prize. So the first, we got Life Coming Down, Time, the Dead Pelicans, a California old boys team made up of old Cal Berkeley people, Belmont Shore, team from Chicago, Connecticut Gray. I found out that Key West team's coming is really just the Coast Guard select side, which is pretty cool. Just put in 2 teams. I think Boca B maybe sort of FAU, Naples, Crew. Obviously, Fort Lauderdale's going to play in its own tournament, the Trident side. So essentially, we got 16 strong teams, 4 divisions of 4 teams each. Top 2 from each bracket make the playoffs, and it's going to be a good time on one day, all day Saturday. Sunday, we're going to do a first ever youth tournament. We have 4 divisions. We're going to try to do an under 19, under 16, 14, and 12, and Life after the tournament.
Good stuff. Yeah, great scouting opportunity for them. Now, who came up with this? Who came up with the idea of changing to tens? It seemed like almost the pandemic timing, with other tournaments canceling and us still being able to play rugby down here. That seems like it's going to help you guys immensely.
Well, me, Nick, and Toby got together and we were talking about how to restructure the tournament. The first thing we decided was obviously the cash prize is going to get a lot of teams down here because money talks, obviously, not just a set of jerseys. And someone from New Jersey actually had called us up, said that tens is getting bigger and bigger. And I've known of a couple tens tournaments specifically in South Africa, and based in the South Florida community, we have lots of South Africans, and they brought it up. So we've been trying to restructure the tournament for a couple years, making it better, thinking of how we get more teams down here, more competitive, and that was just the answer. Is let's try this. It's new, and we'll roll with it if it works. And it looks like this year could be a really good start to a brand new thing. Everyone likes it and has fun. Then we'll go.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a lot easier to sort of get 15 to 18 guys together as it is to get 20 to 25, which you may need for a 15-a-side team. We obviously had the 10s in Bermuda just recently back in the fall. That seems to have been a reasonable success. Charlie and I seem to discuss 10s on quite a bit. That I think it doesn't have the great part of 7s. It doesn't have the great parts of 15s, but I think it's a nice sort of middle ground where I think numbers-wise it could really work for teams. Do you have any spots left open for teams to register, or are you full up?
We're essentially full up, but as we always know, if there's one team that wants in, we could make some room. Fort Lauderdale, as we run the tournament, it's a tedious new COVID guidelines we have to put in place of doing temperature checks, monitoring negative tests before teams come, ultra sipping, people wearing masks on the sideline, the social distancing, making sure the refs are well taken care of. So the more men on the boots on the ground, essentially, to man the tournament is better for Fort Lauderdale and everyone else to run the team. So if we have one more team pay, then we'll make it work for them. We also have a Old Boys Motley game that we always do every year. I believe it's going to be Fort Lauderdale Old Boys and a mix of.
Awesome. So if any old boys are interested in getting their boots on and playing a game, I think you said they need to be.
We have an Old Boys Motley game.
I think you said they need to be over 45, though. I had some people already bitching to me that anybody between 35 and 45 wasn't going to be allowed to play. But I'm 44, Neil. I'm not going to play because I'm sure I'll be reffing either at the tournament or one of these 15-a-side games that are scheduled down here, which I won't mention. But yeah, are we keeping that age limit at 45, or are you going to break some news here that perhaps some 39-year-olds might be able to play?
I'm not going to set an age limit on an old boys game. Yeah, I'm 38, and the main little man tries to get me to play every year. Last year, I was fortunate enough to ref the game. The only requirement I care about is the old boys that everyone has to be sipped, because we're being hardcore about that this year for USA Rugby reasons and Florida Rugby reasons and COVID reasons. We're checking IDs. A little man that I know every year it's been said, but this year we're checking IDs also at the gate and matching up with other clubs' rosters for the same reason. They have to submit their club rosters before they come. They have to fill out a COVID symptoms protocol. All traveling teams have to submit a negative COVID test 72 hours before they get here or show us proof of a vaccine. And like I said, at the gate, we're just going to be checking people's names off. All players, regardless of where they're from, have to do the COVID test. Spectators just have to do the temperature check at the gate and the symptoms worksheet.
No, good stuff. I mean, listen, the city and county have been gracious enough to allow us to put on this tournament, and we have to abide by the rules and keep everybody as safe as we can. There's plenty of space there for teams to sort of spread out, with the 3 fields, and there's other grass elsewhere there as well that you can kind of situate yourselves. I do want to mention that Neil is also the discipline chair for the state of Florida. Does a great job with that. So if you decide to get a red card at any point, I think we had one this past weekend, didn't we, Charlie? Somebody got a red. So the email will be arriving on Neil's desk soon, and he'll be the one that has to deal with you. So we appreciate your work with that. And Neil, I think you said to me yesterday you're now part of the National Discipline Committee as well.
Miss. There you go. They announced it. My first meeting was in January. There's not a lot of national discipline stuff. Florida is fortunate to be one of the only states that's actually playing rugby, especially in the winter, as our weather is awesome for it. So every other state in the country pretty much isn't going. I know Minnesota has played, but they have to wait till the snow stops falling. I think Georgia is going to start playing in a little bit, but most of the country isn't playing, so there's not really much national work to be done.
Well, we appreciate your work on that side of things, Neil. We're looking forward to RugbyFest this year. I think this is the first RugbyFest that I think everybody's really looking forward to in many years. I know not everybody will be up with the news that things are going so well. You've got almost a full tournament 3 weeks out, which, Charlie, if they're full, that means I'm going to get a schedule next week, right?
No, following Florida tradition, you will get it Thursday, and then on Friday you'll get the update.
I'll get a changed one. Yes.
And when you go, you're going to find it that they cross out a couple of teams, and it's.
Well, Well, Charlie.
You know how it goes with
his...
scheduling the tournament. Weird things happen between now and then.
Oh, I know. Listen, I'm obviously just messing with you. And Charlie always gives me grief about my tournament and things that I need to improve. So I'm sure he'll be there to give you grief. Just make sure you have a big display of the schedule, because that's Charlie's biggest thing. And also, solid referee cards with game numbers. And maybe we'll get Andrea on that, my wife, who loves doing that kind of stuff, and she can get on the act and help you out with that. Help me out with that side of things and making sure everything is updated and good to go. Well, again, Neil, appreciate your help coming in today, and appreciate your giving us the information. And again, with the disciplinary committee work, it's a lot of work for no pay. I know that, but I know you enjoy it, and we appreciate your help in that regard.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'll come on anytime you want to help.
See you in.
Thank you, man.
See you in 3 weeks. Well, I think Neil was talking. His mouth wasn't moving on the screen, but I'm pretty sure I heard it.
The audio was terrible.
His connection wasn't the best, but at least we got him on. We snuck him in there. But it's great to see Ruggerfest. Listen, I remember when Ruggerfest, as we mentioned, you and I mentioned earlier, Charlie, it was one of the only times you could really see some real elite teams come into town. We've had some teams from Life and USA South and Argentina, and we used to get teams from all over the country coming in. And as we mentioned, things like Vegas and Savannah, and just general travel costs and the lack of money in rugby is kind of limited teams. But no, it's great to see the Ruggerfest back in some form.
I think it was also one of the tournaments, along with All Florida Day from a few years back, where you would have pretty much everybody in Florida in one place, and I think we have lost a little bit of that, and it would be really nice.
Well, let's finish on a good note. Well, Charlie, give us some. You went down to Key Biscayne. Show us some quick photos from Key Biscayne.
I'm going to show you actually right now from this is Weston, because they took the trouble to send them to me.
Nice.
They have new shirts which look pretty neat.
Those are sharp. Great to see listen, it's always great to see the kids running around. That's the future of rugby right there.
Look at they are better presented than many men's teams. Huh?
Listen, getting the basics right is the key. Even these adults I see can't present the ball in a tackle.
There you go.
That's a big lad there. But no, great to see the kids out there playing nice and safely. I know we've had some COVID issues over the first couple of weeks. We're running along here, Charlie. It's 8:52. Let's get to our games for next week. Can you pull those up? We'll just mention a couple.
Sure.
Obviously, the big one when you pull it up there in a second is Miami Tridents hosting Boca with Boca's first game of the season. Tridents obviously coming off that opening season loss to Palm Beach, which surprised a few people. We'll see. Be interesting to see if the Tridents team on Saturday looks a little more like the Tridents team from the last couple of years. So that's definitely going to be the game of the week, I think, next week. Are you taping that one, Charlie?
Yes, of course.
So we'll have full highlights from that game. Our game of the week, Boca at Tridents. Naples and Sarasota, a nice little West Coast rivalry there. Sarasota coming off that win over the Pelicans last weekend. And speaking of the Pelicans, they will host Crew in that Bay Area derby, or derby, as the Americans like to say.
Derby.
Another big match. We had a little quiet weekend this weekend, but there's some big ones this weekend. Orlando hosting Brevard, D3 versus D2. Brevard coming off a win in their first week, as well as Orlando. So battle of two undefeated. I think I'm correct, right? Orlando won their first game, Charlie, if I'm correct?
Yes, I believe so.
I'm terrible. My memory is terrible. Jack's hosting Gainesville. Let's go down a little bit. We may have our first women's game of the season. I'm going to say that game may not happen. Indian River don't seem to have anybody sipped at the moment, so that game may be postponed or even canceled. And then we have some U19 stuff going on. Okapi hosting Cape Pirates, Crew hosting Jacksonville, which is always we'll put that one in quotes, a quote fun matchup, which always seems to have some kind of incident involved in it. And then Naples hosting Sarasota, which should be a good contest as well. Well, as I mentioned earlier, thanks for the donors. Thanks to Brian Vince for checking in, and all of you guys that have checked in this evening via Facebook or YouTube. You can also find this podcast via all major podcast platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I forget the name of the one I use. My one's called Overcast, the app that I use, and it even pops up on there. So any major podcast platform, you can check this out at any time you want to during the week. Obviously, it'll only be the audio version, but you can always go back and check the video version on Facebook or YouTube via the replay. As you can see at the bottom there, you can support us. Also at the bottom, you can see all available episodes. You can go back and check out the Perry Baker episode, the Tridents episodes, all of the former Eagles we talked to, Cam Dolan, etc., from back in the fall. You can check out those episodes at rugbyfl.com/TFRO or TFRO. And you can support TFRO by going to rugbyfl.com/GoFundMe, or you can Venmo at rugbyfl. Again, there are some costs associated with putting this together. So it would be great if we could just cover our hosting costs and to improve our equipment. Obviously, Charlie next time promises not to try and update his internet 15 minutes before we start. So I apologize for the production value at the beginning of this episode. But again, did you post Andrew's post there about we'd love to get some girls rugby going too, Charlie? I don't know if you posted that one. We'd love to get some girls rugby going. We've had years where we've had some good numbers, and Carpi, one of the biggest clubs in the South, if not the United States. We'd love to see them getting the girls rugby going. I know Wellington's still going up there, Boynton. Fort Lauderdale, I'm not sure their status. I think I heard Jacksonville were trying to start a girls team, which is great news.
Yeah,
so, girls rugby, especially with the World Cup. I forgot to mention the World Cup schedule for the women came out earlier this week, so you can check that out at worldrugby.com and check out when the USA. I think they're actually playing in the first game. I think, Charlie, if I saw correctly, one
the USA
games. I think so. Yeah. So it'd be good to see the girls, the USA Eagles women battling there in the World Cup coming up later this year. Did I forget anything, Charlie? I
probably.
But any coaches, listen, coaches, if you're watching, send us highlights, send us photos. We want to include as many teams as possible, not just the teams that Charlie ends up videotaping. Charlie is only one person. He can't be at every pitch every weekend. So videotape your game, even if it's an iPhone from the sideline. You can send it to rugbyfl.com/upload and upload there to the Dropbox, and we'll get it on the podcast when we can. I know it was a busy episode tonight. We went nearly 90 minutes. I'd like to keep it to an hour, but some episodes are going to be busier than others. But next weekend, again, we'll have that Boca Tridents. Perhaps we'll talk to some of their coaching staff after that game. Listen, coaches, even if you lose, please come on and talk to us. We'd like to hear your story behind the game and how you felt your team did. Well, Charlie, I appreciate you joining us. Better late than never.
Listen, so on our way out, I'm going to post the full tribute for Chris.
Yes, please post that. Yes, I only posted half of it. Chris Dolman, the former FIU Miami player who passed away.
So we'll just leave with that and have him, just a little.
No, good way to end. Rest in peace, Chris, and thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you next week.
We will. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ross. Great job. Thank you for covering me.
Listen, it was a terrible job, but if you decide to pay me half, I understand.
I'll check it out.
Half
Okay.
is zero. So.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Take care. Thank you very much.
Chris Doman was will be sorely missed, man. He was a huge part to the success of what FIU is today. He was one of the first guys. Him and Julian Alvarez were the first, FIU guys that kind of welcomed me in. Not including the guys that I had previously coached with Miami Youth that were at FIU, but he was a big part in the merging of the environment and the culture that they had, and the environment and the culture that I was going to be building with FIU. I do recall one time early, and it was usually him and Julie and Abe, who Abraham, who was another big piece of that kind of would come to me and ask me questions around the legality of things that they could do as forwards. So, Chris was always willing to learn and kind of develop his game. And I was always willing to kind of teach him how to take things, further. And he was always a unit and a threat on the field. So he will be missed, man. And I could never say enough about him. So here's to you, bud.
Chris! Hey! Oh, loud!
Mira, ¿ves? Ahora sí se te empezó.